when I was younger, I used to wonder how Peter, James, and John could turn away from Jesus at his crucifixion. I know in John's Gospel, the beloved disciple is at the foot of Christ's cross, along with the mother of Jesus, but the other Gospels don't mention that John was there at the cross. Either way, at least two of those three disciples who were present at this mysterious event of the Lord's Transfiguration turned away from Jesus at his arrest and crucifixion. And then later, they turned back. They found faith. How could Peter, James, and maybe John forget this divine encounter they had had? The glory of God shining through the humanity of their friend Jesus on the mountain. As I grow older, I sort of get how the disciples could have been given this glimpse of heaven, yet later could question or doubt what God was doing or where he was leading them. Yes, they saw the beauty of God on Christ's face, but they struggled to follow when that same face was spat upon, bruised and derided, was weak and in pain. What was God doing when this glorious Messiah was arrested and executed? I think we can understand their struggle to believe and to keep believing. The Old Testament reading for this second Sunday of Lent also provokes us in a different way. I can't imagine the struggle in Abraham's heart and Sarah's heart in our first reading from the book of Genesis. This event was Abraham's last and supreme test of faith. Now an old man, along with his elderly wife, Sarah, they finally have a child, Isaac. God has promised that they would be the parents of a great nation. Time is running out. But then God seems to ask Abraham to give back their only son to God as a sacrifice. Perhaps Abraham was influenced by the peoples around them that practiced human sacrifice. Maybe in desperation, he thought this was the only way to guarantee fertility or many more sons and daughters. The book of Genesis doesn't show or discuss any struggle in Abraham's heart. The author wants to show us, I think, Abraham's faith in God, his readiness to do whatever God asks. But we as readers and believers are alarmed and really disturbed when we hear what seems to be God's unreasonable demand. And we're relieved when God tells Abraham not to sacrifice his son. I think the story makes us look into our own heart. What parent's stomach doesn't churn at Abraham's dilemma, or what child's? The story pushes us to the edge of obedience and the limits of our faith. Perhaps the ultimate point of the story, the real test, is whether Abraham will let God be God. Could Abraham and Sarah let go of the idea of the covenant that God had promised to them? The scriptures don't give us a window into their interior struggle, but they must have wondered, God, you are God. We have followed you all this way. We love you. But what are you doing? What are you asking now? A life of faith is not only transfiguration experiences when we get it and it's easy to follow. There are those times, thank God, consolations, consoling times. But there are those times when we struggle and then finally say yes, or perhaps we fall for a time, like Peter, James, and John, when we are lost in doubt or questions, and then return to the Lord, who is still calling. Abraham and Sarah discover the God who is calling them, that he's faithful to his promise. He will not demand the sacrifice of their son, but will take on himself the burden of the covenant. Can I give my heart in love and faithfulness? God can, and he will provide the sacrifice. Many years in the future, God's Son will agree to become human and give himself in love and faithfulness for us. We may be surprised that the disciples could get to know Jesus, hear his teaching with authority, witness so many miracles of faith, even this transfigured glory, and then struggle after that. Oddly, it's consoling that they do, because we know our own hearts and our struggles at times to keep saying yes to what God asks of us. God's loving heart, God's faithful heart, is that stable center of the covenant. He is faithful and keeps calling even when we struggle. The distressing way of the cross, with God's Son seemingly overcome by suffering and death and worldly powers, show that God is with us in the midst of clouds and whirlwinds too. By his love, Jesus went as low as we can fall so that he can catch us and raise us up. His divine love made human is now the foundation and the center of the covenant. Jesus' loving, obedient, surrendering heart can reshape and divinize our own heart. The transfiguration of Christ on the mountain today shows us God's plan for humanity. Jesus' journey from cross to resurrection will be the path that will transfigure each one of us as well. His divine life shone through his humanity. We are made to share in God's own divine life and to share body and soul in endless fullness of life. That call sustains us on our journey, but doesn't take away all the struggle. That vision inspires, but does not somehow inoculate us against the shock of the unexpected cross, the plan of God that interrupts my plan. The consoling paradox is that the Son, Jesus, faced this too and surrendered himself in love, in the Spirit, to the Father. The glory of Christ is concealed but revealed in his cross. God's glory is concealed and revealed in our cross.